What's going on, Tiger fans? So, I'm going to do my video a little bit early today. Normally, I like to wait for the series to end before I come on, but since it was the All-Star break and the Tigers' schedule was kind of weird, it doesn't really matter. So, a quick synopsis of what's going on. Tigers have already lost two of the first three games back out of the break. Beat the A's 7-2. First game of the series of that doubleheader they had, that weird doubleheader for the makeup game that they had. And then they lost last night. 8-4. Jeimer Candelario continues to impress with the glove. And, I'm not even wasting my time talking about this junk-ass team and what they're currently doing because they are currently sucking, and it's getting brutal to watch. So, as I've teased in my last couple of videos, I wanted to talk about what I think the Tigers are going to do at the trade deadline and who could be on the chopping block to be gone. And honestly, guys, I have zero idea. So if I would have made this video a month ago, I would have come on and said, there's a lot of guys that the Tigers could potentially trade, but they're going to need to have a couple of good weeks to gain some kind of value to make them any kind of a trade candidate. The issue is I don't think the Tigers are really going to have too much to trade besides bullpen depth. And I'm kind of torn on the fence of whether or not being okay with them tearing down the bullpen a little bit because, they're getting back Jose Cisnero. Fulmer's a free agent at the end of the year. Chafin has one more year left, but he's having such a good year that his value is going to be sky high. And, what's the point of keeping him on a team that's clearly not going to win anything this year when you could get something good for him? But, he's been such a pivotal arm out of the back end of the bullpen that, that could hurt to lose. But at the same time, if you lose them, who cares because they're not winning? Willie Peralta's hurt, and again, the Tigers pitching staff has just continued to get decimated by injuries. Michael Pineda to the 15-day IL after last night. Bo Brisky got put on the IL, even though Hinch said that it was something super minor, and I think they just put him on the IL to skip a couple of starts because Brisky had forearm soreness, which is common. I mean, it's a guy pitching a lot of innings at the major league level for the first time. And Alex Faedo is not expected to pitch for the rest of the year with a hip injury. Thank God, honestly, it's his hip, a guy coming off of TJ. It's his hip and not his arm. So, I mean, that's a good thing, but it sucks he's gone for the rest of the season. He already lost Casey Mize. Kyle Funkhauser was announced that he's not going to pitch for this year in the big leagues. Maybe Spencer Turnbull comes back at the end of this year. Who knows? I highly doubt that. So, I mean, that's another arm out of the rotation. Matt Manning made his first rehab start. He is expected to go a couple of more starts before he comes up to the big leagues. Ronnie Garcia's coming back. So, I don't know if they want to go and deal from kind of pitching depth. I mean, if you look at the only pieces of value the Tigers have is in their bullpen. Because like I said, Fulmer's good. But he's a free agent at the end of this year, and do the Tigers want to re-sign him? Or they could do the classic kind of thing like the Cubs did when the Cubs traded Gleyber Torres to the Yankees for Aroldis Chapman, and Aroldis Chapman, obviously won a World Series with them in 2016, and then Aroldis Chapman came back and the Yankees re-signed him. I don't know what kind of a payday increase Michael Fulmer is going to get because he still has had a lot of injury concerns over the last couple of years. He was shut down a couple of times last year with injury issues. This year he's been healthy. He's been good at limiting the walks. He's had a couple of spurts of it. So the Tigers could trade him when his value is sky high and he's had no issues with injuries this year and cash in on the market because right now, with this extra wildcard team added, you guys got to remember that there's more teams in contention than there were last year. And with more teams in contention, that means less sellers. If you look at the American League in a whole, there's only really a super few definitive bad teams that are going to be for sure sellers because there's a lot of teams right around the 500 mark. Now, the Orioles are a surprise team at the 500 mark. But with this team winning at this kind of a pace, they might be like last year where the Tigers were, where the Tigers decided to stand pat because they thought this year they were going to compete. And they didn't, obviously. With the Orioles being where they're at, they might not sell. And then you got the Royals, and they're going to for sure sell. And you got the Tigers, who they should for sure sell. And then, I don't know if the Angels really don't have anyone of super extreme value besides maybe like a Shohei Ohtani that they're going to sell. And the Mariners, all of a sudden, they had won 14 straight games at one time. So they're back in contention. They're going to be buyers. My point is, with more teams within the wild card contention, there is going to be less teams definitive going to sell because their season is over with. So that puts the Tigers, what they have to offer from a bullpen standpoint, at more of a premium where Al Avila can go and ask a lot more versus than years where there was only 2 wildcard teams and there was more sellers, so the market had a little bit more. I think right now at the trade deadline, it's not going to be who they're going to sell. It's going to be who is going to make it on the last half of the season. Because for almost a good bulk of the season, we've all heard the same thing Hinch has said, and I've said. Back of the baseball card, these guys have proven numbers. There's no way they're going to hit this bad for a long time. There's no way they're going to be this bad for a long time. Okay, guys, well, guess what? It's about to be August, and they still suck. Jonathan Schoop still sucks. Robbie Grossman still sucks. Javier Baez has had 2 hot streaks all year, and they were for a total of 5 games, and most of them were against the Red Sox. He still sucks. Spencer Torkelson was so bad, he got put to the minor leagues, and Torkelson, he even said he had lost in Detroit. Quick update on him. He's 1 for 7 with 2 strikeouts already in his first 8 ABs, so he's not off to a roaring start. Literally, Riley Green is the only positive to watching this team, and to see Tarik Skubal, because he's bounced back. He pitched well in Oakland, and to see Tarik Skubal, there's not really, and then you don't get to see how good their back end of the bullpen is. The Tigers don't have anyone that people want. They might have to eat Schoop's money, because I don't know how much longer that they can put Schoop out there. Schoop had that 1 week 2 weeks ago where he hit 400, and that's been his only positive all season. That's it. Robbie Grossman has had a span of 5 good games, and that's when Riley Green got called up, and he had 2 home runs in 5 days. And 2 of them were against the Texas Rangers. That's it. I don't know how much longer they can keep going out there and rolling these same guys out. They need, first off, these guys aren't dudes that are going to help you in the future. They have guys in the minor leagues and guys that have already sprinkled their way up and have been called back down that need an opportunity. Because you know something? You're not winning anything this year. You're not winning anything with Schoop and Grossman. You're not winning anything with, it doesn't matter if it's fucking Paws out there at second base, or it's Cody Clemens out there at second base, or it's Harold Castro getting more reps at third over Jimmy Candelario. You're winning nothing this year. So what I think the team's going to look at the trade deadline, I don't know. Because the Tigers don't really have anything to trade besides bullpen depth. And like I said, I'm torn on it. Do they go and finally, they've had their best bullpen they've had in a long, decades worth time. At least a decade's worth of time. This is the best bullpen they've had. And they have depth, whether it's Lang, Vest, Chafin. Alexander's done a good job. Willie Peralta did a good job. Michael Fulmer, Gregory Soto. They have 7 very good pitchers. And the market for pitchers this year, like I said, with the extra wild card, they're going to be able to ask for quite a lot. So, is there a point of being kind of selfish where I'm like, well, they finally have a good bullpen and they finally accumulated a staff of pitchers that can actually get some big outs when needed? Do they deal from that depth and hurt themselves and potentially hurt themselves next year? But I don't know if there's a point. What's the point of having a lockdown bullpen when your team can't hit? The offense this year is just historically bad. They have no power. Their power is so inconsistent. They have had at least 4 to 5 hitters all at the same time hit under 200 or less. So what? And they can't even get a starting rotation. They have no starters. They have had 15 different starting pitchers. So what's the point of having a lockdown bullpen? Honestly, at this point, it might not be a bad idea to cash out on a couple of those arms. You can always re-sign Michael Fulmer. You don't know what Andrew Chafin's going to be next year, even though he's been a career very good reliever. But you don't know where Andrew Chafin's going to be next year. You could sell him and get a decent bit for him because of the market is so thin. But as for anyone else, when it comes to Tucker Barnhart, who's about to be a free agent, when it comes to Jonathan Scope, who's only got a year left, when it comes to Robbie Grossman, who's about to be a free agent, even Jeimer Candelario, who's got a couple years left, these dudes might be on their way out, and they might be done. Because they can't hit. I can't sit here as a fan every single night and continue to watch Jonathan Scope have bad at bat after bad at bat. I can't sit here night after night and watch almost 5 guys struggle, over half your lineup struggle to hit 200. So at the trade deadline, I'm almost like, who gives a shit? Because it's not going to be who they trade, it's going to be who the fuck they finally get rid of. And finally give other people chances. Because Kerry Carpenter's hitting .357 in the minor leagues. They brought back up Cody Clemens. It might be time to let the kids see what they can do. Because it doesn't matter. You're not even going to win 70 games this year. You're bad. You can't keep letting these guys who are aging veterans who have provided nothing for your team continue to go out here every single night and get at bat after at bat when they're not doing anything with it, when your team is not winning. It makes 0 point. 0. It's not about who they're going to trade at the trade deadline. It's about who they're going to get rid of. Who are they going to cut and designate for assignment? They put Akil Baddoo down in the minor leagues for 2 months. He's hitting .357 by the time he came back. He had like 3 home runs in 20 games. He's had 2 hits since he came back. 2. So when it comes to the trade deadline, I don't know. You asked me a month ago. I said, well, maybe a team's going to want Jonathan Scope. No one wants Jonathan Scope. No one does. He can't hit. He has no power this year. He can play a decent second base, but do you really want Jonathan Scope as a utility infielder? A utility second baseman? What are you going to get for that? A couple of autographed balls from the fucking Tigers Authentics booth? That's old balls like signed by fucking Daniel Norris? No one's going to give you anything. Who wants Robbie Grossman? No one wants Robbie Grossman. Who wants Tucker Barnhart? A guy that was supposed to be this gold glove defender catcher. The guy has fucking 6 extra base hits all year. No one's going to give you anything for that. So you're wondering as a Tiger fan, who we're going to trade for? What are we going to get rid of? It's literally, you're gonna sell a couple of bullpen arms. The Tigers might get rid of Michael Fulmer and Chafin. That's really about it. Because I don't see the Tigers, anyone else, going to draw any kind of interest for any other kind of players. Because there's no other guys worth of value. At this point, it's not about who we're going to get and how the team's going to look. It's about who's finally going to get cut and DFA'd. Because changes need to be made. Because this ain't working for it. Back of the baseball card, my ass. These guys have either expiring contracts or a year left with minimal money owed. It's time to make some changes. So, I don't know. Maybe they trade a couple of bullpen arms and they get a couple of nice prospects out of it. Kind of like when they traded Justin Wilson and Alex Avila and they got Jeimer and Isaac Paredes. You know, that was a good trade because Jeimer, as bad as he's been this year for the last couple of years, has been good. You know, so they could get hopefully something like that. I mean, even though Jeimer was good when they were really bad, he was still an everyday offensive contributor and filled a roster spot for a few years. So that's a good trade. But I don't know, guys. I don't know. I have no idea. Like I said, I think it's more about who gets cut versus who they trade. Because this team is just so bad, and they only have a couple of pieces. And people who think that the Tigers are going to get Juan Soto, they have the prospects to do it. And you can't really prospect hug. Because if you look at the top 10 prospects in all of baseball from 2015 and up, I got a bunch of baseball prospectus books I buy it every year. You look at the top 10 prospects, almost all those dudes aren't even all-star caliber players, or they've had a couple of good years. So I love my prospects, I do, and I'm a big Green and Torkelson guy. And a lot of people are comparing it to like when the Marlins traded Miguel Cabrera. But I don't see the point in dumping the farm on a team where you put Juan Soto from the Nats, where he's really the only good player, with maybe exception for Nelson Cruz and Josh Bell, and then you put him on a team that lacks depth and lacks a lot of major league talent around him, and you put him in the identical situation, and then you took your farm system and tipped it out right side out for one good player, and then you can't put any good players around him, and yeah. And then you have to rely on Al Avila to sign good free agents. And as much as I defend Al Avila, that's one thing he hasn't done well at all. He can't sign good free agents. Erod finally talked to the Tigers, and he's going to be back on the team by late August, they think, if no setbacks. So, trade deadline. No clue. That's it, guys. That's all I got for you guys this week. I have no idea who the fuck they're trading. I don't know who the fuck wants any of our players, because they all suck, besides a couple few. So I got for you guys this week. I'll be back next week. Go Tigers. Have a good one.